And we are recording. Welcome to the evening of Python coding. This evening we have Chris Cowan, one of our community members, who's gonna show you some very nice new tool that's becoming very, very popular these days. It's called Ruff, and it's a linter. But Chris will tell you more. Chris.
Okay, yeah. Like I said, we're going to be talking about ruff. You go to the introductory slide. It's kind of tool you would use. In the past, I had used, actually ruff is both a linter and a code formatter. And up until I discovered it, I was using either PyLint, Flake8, and the black code formatter. I'm sure a lot of people were using it, and often they would stitch it into a CI/CD pipeline. The reason why I'm excited about Ruff, and the company that makes it also makes another interesting tool called UV, which I didn't have time to, I was planning on talking about in January. But the key feature of Ruff, it was written in Rust, which is one of the new compiled systems languages. And there seems to be a lot of things being re-implemented in Rust for very good performance. The purpose of the linter is of course, to enforce Python coding standards, which are very well documented in the PEPs, which are sort of like RFCs for Python, or specs for, and also to find errors in your code. And then, of course, it does linting, it does formatting, and it also does auto fixing, but it doesn't fix everything. And we'll talk about that as we go on. So the key features is it's significantly faster than Flake8 or PyLint. If you go out to their site, they have some timing, and I had some projects, larger projects that I ran recursive lints on, and I was amazed at how much quicker Ruff was. And the other tool that they have, UV, is also very much faster than they. It actually integrates multiple functionalities, because I was also using iSort. So anytime you have Python code and you're importing libraries, it does things like sorts the imports in a particular order alphabetically, so they're easier to find and read. So the goal here is to try to make code that's readable. And if you adhere to standards, hopefully multiple people, when they look at it, will be able to understand it more quickly, instead of if you do things that are your own quirks and idioms. Hopefully a tool like this helps you identify those situations and sort of standardize things, carrying the banner for readability. Like I said, it's highly customizable. I think whatever W's first name is was asking me about that before the meeting started, so we'll talk about that a little bit. And like I said, it can automatically fix some issues. It supports over 800 lint roles right now. That's the current, at least, stat on the website. The company that makes it, by the way, is Astral. I have some links here in the slide deck later, so we'll talk about that. And it includes best practices, style, and security sort of comments or fixes. It runs completely standalone. Like I said, it's written in Rust, and you can install it without Python. It has no dependencies on Python, even though that's what it does, is analyzes Python. So the two ways you might usually install it, you can do a pip install, but just keep in mind it's not. And then in my case, I'm on a Mac right now. It's supported in Homebrew. There's already formulas for it, so you just do a brew install Ruff, and you're pretty much done. Here's a quick output of the help from it. So the key thing is, you'll see here, there's a bunch of subcommands. Check is usually used for running a lint. The roll command, and we'll see in a second when we run it, will actually let you know. It'll flag it, and it has a sort of a code number, like usually a single letter followed by a number. And this comes from the Python PEP standards, and it will explain to you what the issue is, and how you should clean it up. Config W, you were asking about this. We'll talk about. You can configure both the formatter and the linter with a TOML file, either pyproject.toml or a specific ruff.toml file to just address the rough configurations. The linter subcommand just tells you all the linters that are available. We won't. So the other two that we're basically going to focus on: check, rule, config, and format, and that just runs the code reformatter. There's pretty extensive.
Chris. One thing occurred to me: we have beginners here; they don't know what a linter is.
So let me get to the example, and
okay. Well, you'll show them what the linter is later. I apologize.
Okay. So like I said, there's two places you can configure. I think when you have a Python project, you might be using a tool, and you might have several Python source files as well as some modules and packages. You might be working out of Visual Studio or a PyCharm, in which case you'd have a sort of a GitHub repo. You'd have a set of subdirectories underneath of that, and then you would have Python files spread out amongst the various subdirectories. So you can set up ruff to basically recursively go through and analyze the whole project. And some of the Python tools, though, now they have this standard called PyProject, where you define what the version is, what the dependencies are, and things like that. And you can either place rough specific configs in the PyProject file, or you can just author a separate file called ruff.toml. And this is a simple markup language, very similar to the Windows INI files, where there's like some sort of option, and then you would basically set values for it, or configuration values for it. And it uses a Python-like array or list format with the square brackets. The key things are, and let me just stop here a second. The tool was written by a company called Astral, A-S-T-R, and their website is astral.sh, and they basically have two tools that are taking some of the Python world by storm: ruff, and the other one is called UV. Now, their documentation for ruff, if you various editors, like if you use Vim, NeoVim, Emacs, Visual Studio, PyCharm, if you follow this link, and I'll do that a second here, you'll see this is on the Astral site. They have instructions on how to set it up in VS Code. And in this case, it's an extension in the VS Code marketplace. This is what you would need to do to stitch it into NeoVim. As you scroll down, you'll see there's instructions for Vim, Helix, Kate, Sublime, PyCharm. And since I'm an old guy, I love Emacs. I'm not going to demo that today. Likewise, this can be configured into a continuous integration, continuous deployment. So if you were using GitHub Actions or Jenkins or Travis or whatever, or GitLab, you can go in and configure an automated build process where you call the linter or the code reformatter. Actually, you would probably call the code reformatter on the sort of a post, a pre-commit check-in or whatever in your version control. All right, so I prepared this markdown file just on GitHub. Let's see if we can get there real quick. And it shows a rather strangely formatted short little Python file with just the main and a function. And I used some rather ridiculous indentation rules. It's valid, but it's obviously not very nice. So here in this case, I'm running the formatter. So I say rough format. If I pass this flag check, what's happening is it's doing what you would call a dry run. So it's telling you that the file would be reformatted, but it's not actually executing the reformatting. And then, of course, if you remove the check flag and you just run a rough format or whatever, then it will, you can see it cleaned up the code, tightened up all the lists, compressed everything. So I got rid of all the extraneous white space. Oh, you'll also notice that in Python, you have to indent for the next level, but you don't have to do so consistently. So you'll see, later when you go back. I think I have varying numbers of space and things like that here. It fixed them up. So let's talk about the linter. What the linter does is it looks at your code, it parses it, and then based on a couple of standards, it makes recommendations about things that should be changed. So in this case, when I first run it, I run it with the default configuration. I don't have a configuration file in this case, and it says all the checks passed. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it. We'll go back and play with this a little bit more in the command line just to talk about it. But basically, you'll see here, for example, when I select all, it has like a class of things called annotations. So it's telling me I haven't provided any type hints for this function. I'm not identifying what the type of the arguments are, nor am I identifying what the type of the return type is. So you would obviously want to do a sort of a dash greater than an arrow, space int, and then colon, and that would fix that problem. You can see there's like a code for every single one of these. So if we go down here and we look, Ruff had the rule option. So if I wanted to see information about what is a D103, this is what it spits out. So it says basically, in this case, it's looking for functions where I haven't provided any documentation of any type. It's expecting me to go in, like if this is unique function, I should have put a Python doc string with the triple quotes and described a little bit about what this function is doing. So it's, basically just tell me basically a function, doc string should describe the function's behavior, side effects, return, whatever. This is just, for consistency. I can go back in, and we'll do this from the command line in a second. And when it cross references against all the specs here. So it's very comprehensive. Probably should have picked something else. Let's go back and and I'll do some command line work so we can play with it a little bit more. Presently, I think it's still a little bit less flexible than PyLint and Flake8. I'm not sure if that's 100% true anymore. The gap's been closing, but the other two tools have a multiple year head start on Ruff, so they're more mature. Just mentions here, if you want to build out everything locally, you would have to have a Rust compiler. That doesn't seem like that would be something that most of the people at this meeting would do. It would be more like in an environment where you're building large Python. It's a fastly evolving tool, so the caveat, of course, is you probably want to stay current. I noticed that the syntax of the command invocation has changed pretty radically in the last 8 months. So, anyway, like I said, this isn't the end. We're going to go back and do some hands-on. Looking into the crystal ball or looking forward, there's going to be expansion of the supported rules and integrations. more autofix. We'll talk about the autofix in a second. And of course, there's a very vibrant community. So if you think that you need a new feature, you should probably go out to the GitHub repository, which is identified in the resources section, and request it via issues. So the key thing is the homepage for Astral is Astral SH. Actually, ruff RS is just a DNS alias to the same site. The docs are here. And this is probably, and right here you'll see here's some time comparison of the various existing linters versus Rust. I don't know what project they used, but they, basically the other tools are implemented in Python. You can see ruff is significantly faster. It runs in less than 0.3 of a second, and then the closest thing to it takes a total of 6 seconds. iLint takes over a minute. So, like I said, I don't remember what the test case was, but it's very much faster. And they have some instructions here in installing and configuring. The key thing is for the configuration, you can put the both the formatting, exclude, like a W Turner. You were asking about line length, indentation control, and some other things, quote style, indent style, whether you want the trailing commas in the list. There's a variety of these features, and the best place to go is in this website. And like I said, you can basically build a TOML file here, and I want to even show you how to, the only difference is in your Pi project, that of course is going to have entries for things other than ruff, whereas ruff TOML is going to be just specifically the ruff configuration. Now, if you look down here, you'll see the select, and I did select all earlier. They also have an ignore thing. This is with the linter. So I think if you go here, they show some various options you can use. Check, fix, whatever. But somewhere I thought there was a list of the.
Chris, there's a question here. Robert is asking: Is there a way to undo automatic corrections without reverting to previous before the update state with versioning software like Git?
Yeah, you would have to write a hook. Like I said, you have to be careful because the auto fixing doesn't get everything. But I would do that on a or actually I would do that on a I think is there hooks for add? I think there are. I haven't implemented it yet, but it's something I need to look into. Let's go back to the I go into the integration. I don't know if it was configuring or install integrations. So here they talk about GitHub Actions. That's for CI/CD. Let's see what they say about GitLab. So here they give you a pre-commit hook that you could use with like GitHub. And they say to enable lint fixes, you need the fix argument. They have some. Does that answer your question? You said Robert? I don't see all the names.
Yeah, Robert Zogas asked it. It's the best you can do for now. If he wants, he can ask more.
It could be used as a response. Yeah, it could save the stuff before it did the change.
Right. What I typically do is I always have a terminal open and I run it just from the command line, even if I'm because I usually don't have as much control. But let me sorry, I got to back to my oh, you guys can look this up. Let's switch windows here and oh, damn it. Hold on, I have to drop out of full screen. Go back to my, let me change what I'm sharing here a second. I'm going to go to the terminal. Oh, I hit stop. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm good. Let me find my term. Didn't, there we go. A little bit of a lag there. All right, so
You make it slightly bigger, slightly.
okay, hold on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's good enough.
Let me, I seem to have lost my keyboard. Oh, wonderful. There we go. Maybe we can look this file real quick. Oh, so I have this dumb little Python program, and I did a couple things, non-standard naming of functions and things like that. And there's one other error here. There should be a comma, not the, but close enough. And like I say, um, wanted to run. Oh, again, up again. I spell winter. This thing puts an incredible lag on my. So these are all the linter classes that you can call up and have it analyze. In my case, I've created this ruff toml file, and I just selected two things: a set of line length, and then I selected a subset of the linters that I wanted. If I do a rough check, it spits out a bunch of things it doesn't like. I don't have annotations. This function name should really be in lowercase, so and this is the same way PyLint works as well. I think it was what, N802. Help if I type 802 and not 902. And it gives me a better explanation of what this is. They recommend that function names be snake case or whatever. I could go in and fix that or whatever. I can.
Robert is asking again, can you select everything in the config file with a star or something like that?
Yes. And it's done like this. I want to run all the linters. I can just say select all. And it spits out 14 total. It might be this. I was kind of sneaky. I selected the ones that I saw from the output already. Like I said, and then if you see at the bottom, it says 14 are fixable with fix. 2 of them are marked unsafe. And I believe also when it runs the linter, it also runs the reformatter. So if of course, if I run, I can actually run format first. Let's copy it just so we can diff it later. God, this is slow. What's going on? If I oops, not the right one. Asterisk. You can see what it changed. You know, it flattened out the list, changed the indentation a little bit, put some parens around the return values, added a new line in it at the end of the file just so it was well balanced. So that was the formatter, and then I can go one step further, and I can also run a check all fix Cowan. We look at that again. Oh, didn't I don't. I probably should have used a verbose flag. Let me do a. Let's roll those that are fixable. Show fixes, apply fixes, resolve one. So let's do show fixes first to see if we. I'm not sure it's gonna.
This way is just showing you the fixes, but not fixing, correct?
Yeah. I've got created and favorite counterparts in the word section. This is, and thus my statement earlier about, you know, this is a constantly being enhanced project. So missing doc string, trailing white space. Oh, so it fixed most of those things. It's not going to add doc strings for me. It's not that smart. I guess if you had like Code Pilot or something like that, you could, but let's do unsafe fixes and just see what happens. Oh wait, maybe it's not actually checking the. Well, I'm new to the tool too, so check config analysis. No, it's definitely check. No. Let's run it with the verbose flag. This is. Well, it's probably already been fixed. That's disturbing. No.
Did it make those fixes? Or did it just say
it did?
You didn't do the fix. You didn't do fix. Fixable minus fix. It only shows you the fixes. You have to actually do the fix.
I could have. Maybe I need both options.
Now there's a difference.
Yeah, there it did. So it fixed the things it could. I don't know what it fixed.
The 9 fix, the 8 things it tells you that it can fix.
Yeah. Oh, like here, it added a type annotation. Oh, it added a, I don't know what it did there.
Robert
Oh.
is asking another question. He's really interested in this ruff. So he's asking, is there a way to add your own rules?
That's what the promise is, if I read the site correctly. I'm not gonna, if you go out to Astro, yeah, the link I had in the thing, hold on, yeah. I don't know if I can share my whole screen here or not. Hold on. Search it again. Because I had it, if I did a whole screen. So, the pages side up. So they had 800. Oh, this page. Figuring. What's it told us to find out? I want to filter. Let's see. Fix watch. Well, that's interesting. I haven't played with the watch yet, but it sounds like it kind of sits in background. So here to describe how you can select the rules, and it doesn't mention whether or not you can.
They did say that they accept on GitHub like changes if you want. So perhaps you should just suggest this option like a plugin rule. But then I don't think he'll be fast unless.
Well, that's the whole issue, right? You have the ability with Pilot, I'm sure, but you can see it's markedly slower than a Ruff. I got the much. I don't know. Perhaps some people can jump in. Do any of you use like Pilot or Flake 8 and Black currently? And have any of you been in Ruff?
I use PyCharm. Whatever PyCharm linter is, then it's marvelous. I love it. The default linter in PyCharm, I have no idea what it is, but I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty good, at least for the code completion and as talking to the language serve models. I have the plugin installed into PyCharm, but I seem to be having issues. I also had issues with I have this utility called Dash. It's like just a huge help documentation repository that brings things up in a browser or whatever. And it has, every single language you could think of. And I had issues with that plugin as well. So I don't. I see it as being used more, and like I said, a CI/CD pipeline where I'm working on a large project, and I want the code. I've got multiple developers, and I want the code to be consistently presented.
Anyone has any questions about what we showed so far, or anything about Ruff or linters at all, or formatters? Come on. You must have questions, not only Robert.
Robert, did you take a look at the options for the formatting? Did that meet your needs, or was there other things or do you use any formatters today? Like I said, Black or anything?
I don't regularly do Python, and just like Jacob said, I use PyCharm and the equivalent in IDEA for Java, and whatever it offers plus the other things. But it seems there was, for a moment, visible when you were looking through the documentation, that there is something saying that this is a fast evolving project. So maybe they have something about it over there.
Well,
what it gives me an idea is that if you can make your own rules, they don't really have to be around this thing. They could be that you want to suddenly make some debugging, and let's say anytime any function is entered, that you spit out something into the log. So if you can make your own rules, then you could modify the code in global ways, in such a way to enable such things as an idea that they didn't really make it for, right? Just that, just thinking online.
There are some other Python parsers that kind of like, and there's several different debugger modules. I don't know if Astral has gotten into it. Like I said, the tool I was more blown away about, but I didn't have time enough to really prepare stuff for it because it's much deeper than is their UV tool, which totally seems to, everybody I've shown it to so far, they come back and they love it, and it's basically a replacement for the whole build process. Poetry and pip, I don't know if but the whole how do you build and manage a project and manage the dependencies, and it's written in Rust, and it's just so fast compared to the Python equivalents. It's not even funny. It also allows you to do things like once again, it's implemented in Rust, and it kind of sits out the side of the Python environment. So it can manage virtual environments. It can actually manage multiple versions of Python, and you can actually set it up to test and to run round robin through all the versions of Python that you have installed on your machine, and it automatically does all the management of that in a sort of a sequential fashion. Somebody said which one is implemented in Rust. Sherry, I mean, are you talking about ruff and UV? I don't know of any other utilities. I'm seeing similar things. There's some stuff in the Node world now. Was it Deno? I forget. There's a couple of things in the JavaScript world very similar to like UV, where they're slowly replacing V8 and things like that with these Rust tools. But if I think I understand what you want, Robert, I think would be something more in line with the re-implementation of the Python debugging stuff. There's a couple different ones. You can interactively start it with just a -m. What is it? PDB, Jacob, I think.
Yeah, PDB is the old debugger.
And then you can import a debugger and actually put kind of breakpoints in your code that you can, that'll basically stop, and you can sort of run, start stepping through various things.
Yeah, PDB comes with Python, but there's like very graphic versions. There's WinPDB, and later on, like PyCharm has its own debugger. But I think what you want is more like a profiler. You can actually modify the code and tell it, but it spits out information what happens in, like, if you want to watch certain point, there's profilers that do that. Like, I forgot the names, but there are tools that do something like what Robert wants to do.
I know Wu was talking earlier about maybe closing files or something like that. There's Pythonic ways of doing things, like, particularly Python 3 and context managers and stuff like that. And then
close figures, figures. Yeah, you can create lots of figures in a loop. If you don't, yeah, close them, and you know, I have something running every half hour. After a couple of days, you just.
Are you familiar with the context manager? So there's like an object type in Python where if you know you're working on like a socket or it's very similar to the defer thing in Go. I don't know if you've programmed in Go, but the idea here is you know you're going to be working on files, so you make a part of your, it's like a closure in your program, and you say
if I close a graph, then in one file. I'm just saying I have to close all the figures I created. You know, after show, I need to close it. That's all.
See, I'm saying if you use a context manager, you might not.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'm not
so
familiar.
what happens is you define the context, and then you indent calls underneath of it, and then it automatically makes sure when that goes out of scope that the file is closed without you.
Okay. I will Google that. It sounds like a good direction to go chase after.
And I didn't check. I probably should have checked to see what the linter did. I would assume that it would tell you to, hey, you need to use a context manager here because you're going to leave files open. But I didn't. I don't have that test case up. I did mention in the slides, by the way. I don't know if you noticed. If you're really interested in this topic of linting, hold on. Go back to the. It was
one worrisome thing is that you had a little demo just to show this, a showcase, and it said, I found 16, I solved 8, so you're on your own for the other 8. Imagine if you had a really big project.
Well, I turned
on lines, right?
I turned on a very verbose one, right? And it had things like I didn't have doc strings. That may or may not be, you know, depending on your needs. If it's quick throwaway code, you don't have to. Hold on, I'm looking for the web page. It's in my slides. I just gotta find it. I hope they didn't take it out. Oh, I'm sorry. On the resources, let me share the screen one more time. Sorry. So in this, it takes forever for it to render this. It says error. I can't share my screen. What's going on?
Why can't you share the screen?
I don't know. It threw an error. Let's try again.
Okay.
Unless you.
I'm not blocking you. I have no idea what's happening.
It seems to be slow. I think it's because we got a kind of a multicast meeting with people all over the place. Let's see.
Do you want me to try to present?
All right, on the last page of resources, you'll see there's a. Yeah, I can't. It keeps telling me I can't share now. I don't know what the issue was. I was doing it earlier.
Yeah, just put it in the chat. Put the link in the chat, people.
Yeah, hold on. I'll put this. So basically, Thailand had a huge number of test cases, you know, for all the things that it tests for, and you know, it recommended that you. Let's write a comment here.
While you're writing the tools, Robert, you want to explain what you wanted to, what you wrote?
Well, no, I was just thinking, besides what the primary use of this is, because I had such an experience a long time ago, so let's say a quarter century ago, with C++ code, where we involved something that was converting something to something, and then it was able to do things of that sort, but it was not really a linter. It had nothing to do
Actually,
with it.
Jacob, you just got me thinking. What Robert's describing could most likely be done with a decorator. I don't know if you're.
Yes, it could, but that wasn't the question. This is a coding way of doing it, and Python will enable you to replace the debugger with your own debugger if you want, or do whatever you want, right? That was not, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think the is to look at your code and see how it stands against the PEPs, basically. And, whether you did things in a Pythonic way, as they always say, they always describe things as being, if it's idiomatic, then it's Pythonic, like using context managers, and always end in your list with the trailing comma so that you can add more elements to it later and not have to worry about missing it, things like that. And, tightening up the indentation or whatever so that it's consistent through the all your source code base and whatever. So,
anyone has any more questions? I'm asking because if not, we'll stop the recording. But if there are, please do ask.
like I said,
What's the alternative to Pythonic?
whoops, it's I guess doing it your own way.
You can go your own way. Sherry, in Python, do import this, and it will tell you the Zen of Python. Then it's like they like things very organized. I see Wuzan entered some context manager.
Just some information. It's actually, I think I'm probably accidentally using some stuff. And but I just give you a summary of how to use a contact manager. That's all.
And it's used not only for files, but if you're doing like anything with sockets or any, databases too, you make a database connection. Most of the libraries use a context manager that way. When it goes out of scope, like I said, you have a similar concept in, I don't know if anybody programs in Go, but they have the defer statement. So you always put your defer close, and then what happens is the defer is executed right before the return is generated. So if you have any sort of functions that are attaching or connecting to resources, it makes sure it frees them all before it leaves and you're done with them.
Yeah, this is a funny thing, right? If you let Copilot write code for you, then you have different writing to the file. Some of them with the width, sometimes don't. We just use it. Sometimes we don't really know what's the difference. Now I kind of know.
Probably because it was trained on code that did or didn't use them, right? Or a mix of it. So that's the issue.
Exactly. I'm just saying it's kind of interesting. Yeah, I'm just saying I used it. I just not aware I used it.
You had used it. Well, that's good.
I'm just saying it's because Copilot gave me the code with it, right? It's not like I'm intentionally using it. Copilot gave me a piece of code. I just sort of put in my code.
Who else is using Copilot on the call? I haven't been.
Yeah.
It's like I want to pay for it.
I write my own code.
I sometimes will prompt like Chat GPT just to see what it says, but
go ahead. I'm telling you, with Copilot, with one evening, I can sort of download all S&P 500 stocks, group them in by industrial groups, and for each group, I would normalize have a percentage of increase and for each group, then graph them all in one chart, in one graph.
Now,
I do that, all those things in one evening, and I mean, I'm not a super.
are you aware that
Uh-huh.
I don't use it, but supposedly Microsoft's the latest version of Excel has the ability now to basically be controlled with Python. So you can
Yeah, Python. I normally what I do is I read.
you could probably data ingress directly into Excel without having to.
Okay. Guys, we're digressing from the topic of ruff.
Yeah.
So unless anyone has any ruff questions, then we'll close this. So anyone has any more ruff questions? Ruff questions going once? Ruff questions going twice?
Hey, yeah, this is Ken.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my very first time joining you guys, and I'm James
Welcome.
But I just thank you. I have a quick question. So, I'm trying to pick up Python, but I'm really confused on what material to really use. So I don't know if you guys can give me some suggestion on material that could really help me.
Okay, this is not a rough question. This is not typical. This is not related to this demo.
Sure, I
Correct?
don't really know what the rough question means. I'm sorry
No, no,
about
no.
that.
Wait with it. Wait, we'll answer it. Wait, but then any other rough questions that we can go on the recording? Questions going once? Questions going twice? Oh, is rough free? Sherry's asking.
Yes.
Rough is free and it's open source, correct?
Yep. I don't know if it's open source. That's a good question.
It's not on, they don't have like an issues on GitHub and stuff like that.
I'm assuming you can build. Yeah, they have a repos on GitHub. So I would imagine that. Oh,
Okay.
here's the GitHub repos on the last page. So yeah, no, it's open source.
Okay, so it's free and open source.
And it was based on, just so everybody, oh no, UV was based on Cargo, which is the build thing for Rust. I don't know if there's a comparable linter for Rust or not, but anyway. But yeah, no, on the last page of the resources, it has a pointer to, it's github.com astral-sh/ruff, RUFF.
And who built Ruff? That's the question.
Astral. The company's
Astral
name.
is the company.
Yeah. And then they, well, for whatever reason, got that high level domain .sh.
Astral, not Astral.
Oh yeah, well, I'm Baltimore on, so
Okay. Any more questions about Ruff? Going once? Going twice? No more. Oh, she came up with a new question. Where can you find the tutorial in Ruff? Well, you have one here. Sherry, this video will come out soon and you'll be able to follow it out. And there's a link to this. We'll post it in the chat later that actually shows you how to use it. But if you do rough minus help, it also gives you the help. Correct?
I didn't check the YouTube. There are a significant number of UV tutorials on YouTube, but I unfortunately didn't check for. But I would just do a search on YouTube and see if.
Okay, it seems she found one. She's
Okay.
one here. Okay, so unless there's really pressing questions on Ruff, then I want to thank Chris. So please make some noise, clap, whatever. Thank him for. He actually was a replacement. Talked very quickly. He replaced it. So thank you for me very much, Chris, because I was on I was thinking, what should I do? I have a backup, but I rather that our community presents rather than me. So
I really wanted to talk about, I was scheduled to talk about UV in January, but
it was rough. No?
Not enough time.
No, it was about ruff in January.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
just
well-
moved it. If you want to talk about UV, we'll book you. If you still have time, we'll book you another time. Don't worry. I'll figure
then-
out January. It's like,
Do a
but
complete-
really, thank you. It's hard organizing, and people kind of like sometimes when you organize this, you're doing it for a while. Sometimes something doesn't work out, like scheduling or whatever, and we move things around. And it's always helpful being someone from the community who jumps in, and you helped me out a lot this time. Thank you. Okay,
also-
so don't go away. I'm stopping the recording. Don't go away. And we're still continuing. So thank you again, Chris. Don't go away.